Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thank you.
So, today we'll be talking about relationships and the male female dynamic. But before we begin, could you give us a brief bio?
So my name's Daniel Fox, and I am a researcher and coach and author, and I help people understand the dynamic of masculine and feminine energies in relationships. So we kind of pull some of these dynamics from esoteric traditions, from Eastern traditions, and even from just earlier instinctual ways of being and relating. And I teach people how to do that to get better lives, better relationships, less fighting, more fulfillment, and more turn on.
So, let's get into it. Why do you think that females right now, not females, relationships right now are suffering so much?
There's a lot of confusion and a lot of changes that have happened over the last 70 years that run countercurrent to the rest of human history. So if you think about what has happened in the West and what's happened specifically with technology in the last 20 years, you rarely meet somebody that hasn't found a significant other online. So it's like, wow, how do we adapt from our grandparents marrying the person who lived 2 blocks away after 6 months of dating to now having endless hundreds of options? And then our standards change, our perception of other people changes, our ideas about what we're to invest in each other and what to expect from each other have all changed. And frankly, it's left our systems in complete disarray and with a lack of any kind of social mores to move forward.
So, could you explain polarity? Because when I think of it, I'm like masculine and feminine. Okay, masculine things are like this, but don't you have to keep switching back and forth just to be a person?
To some degree, yeah. In the Western world, we've had to kind of make some adaptations. Particularly, women have had to make some adaptations in order to function in a workplace. So, women who've decided to step into a work situation are operating from at least partially a masculine energy. They're the ones that are generating work. They're the ones that are showing up and able to kind of generate and work on a team and penetrate the world with the company's vision. They're kind of going out there. They're becoming a breadwinner. So in that sense, there is some adaptation between that masculine and feminine energy. If we want to dial it back and look at what happens when two people come home, let's say we want a polarized relationship at home, which is kind of, no matter what your lifestyle is outside in your 9 to 5, you can always come home and say, I'd like to try this at home. I'd like to see what this is like at home. In that case, you have women who are able to relax and let go of the day to the best of their ability so that they can receive from their husbands. So that's the primary indicator of a feminine polarity, is the ability to receive. And then his is to give. So they come home and he's giving and she's receiving. So that sets the table for how the energies move and operate. On top of that, there's nurturing, there's radiance, there's creativity that she embraces. And for him, he's bringing provision, protection, presence, strength, and a frame that she can dance in. He's bringing witnessing. So these are kind of the two things. And then from that bubble up all kinds of different situational things and different cultural things that express themselves.
So, like men online, they're saying things like, if you're very aggressive, that's very masculine. But then I look at the animal kingdom, for example. If you mess with a mother's children, she's gonna kill you. Everybody knows you don't mess with like a female bear's cubs. She will attack you. That's a very aggressive thing. So females are aggressive and can be very violent in nature. So I'm having trouble understanding how aggression is only masculine.
Yeah, well, I don't think it is. But here's what I would say that throws a lot of people off. There's a lot to motherhood that is masculine energy. If you want to conceptualize it as providing and protecting, as a mother, part of your parenting, part of your motherhood is provision and protection. So you're going to have that masculine energy kind of enter into that situation.
So that's totally okay for a female to do then.
Well, now if there's a man around,
He should
um,
do it.
Why not? And that's just simply a matter of like calculating upper body strength and the ability to like, lay down some pain.
Mm. Okay, so what are some of the worst pieces of advice that you hear people giving on the internet, TikTok, and all that stuff?
Yeah. So there's a lot of really bad advice going out there. Some of it will just fall under this general blanket that if you're not getting gendered advice in a relationship, I think that's the first place that you need to start. If you want to have the heat of polarity, if you want to have the kind of that more intense sexual dynamic or that draw, if you want to have a relationship where there's um, more of a giver and a receiver, a provider, protector, and a radiant woman, then you really want to lean away from advice that is not gendered and just says like, oh, well, just, be yourself or, or do whatever, it doesn't matter who's doing it. And you really want to look into how does the feminine react, respond, and operate in this situation, and how does a masculine person initiate or create this dynamic. From there, that's really the basis which advice should flow. If you're not getting kind of gendered advice, you really want to be suspect of it. Some advice can be applied to both, like this: show up with a disposition to give. Right? That applies to both men and women. Now, for women, showing up with a disposition to give looks like doing the work to receive. So it's a little bit of an oxymoron. And for a man, showing up with a disposition to give is a little more direct. He's like, okay, I'm going to provide and protect. Well, women right now also want to give, which is great and it's noble. But in order to create that polarity, her giving to the relationship is going to look like doing her inner work so that she can be able to receive, because that's something that there's a lot of deficit of right now.
Okay, so I'm on TikTok, and all these guys are saying to women, "What do you bring to the table?"
Ah.
And I'm like, isn't she supposed to receive? But how are you bringing stuff?
Yeah, what are you bringing to the table? These are men who don't understand the depth of what femininity really is. So there's this word, and it comes down to this specific word, nurture. And if you think, and so a lot of women get this idea that, oh, I'm going to nurture my man by listening to his emotions. Like that's nurturing. That's not nurturing. Nurturing is what happens when you take a seed, a man's seed, into your body and you turn it into a human being. That is magic. Nurturing is what happens when you're given a potato and you make a meal out of it. Nurturing is what happens when you have four walls around you and you turn it into a space where you can have rest and rejuvenation, or making a house a home. Nurturing is the feminine divine channel of being able to bring life and breathe life and creativity into raw material. So this is what a woman brings to the table, and this is what justifies a man's provision and protection. It's not only about materialistic offspring, right? It's not only about, well, I'm going to watch out, make sure my offspring are okay. I'm going to make sure that you're okay. That's why I'm providing, protecting. You are providing and protecting because her relaxed radiance nurtures your vision, and it nurtures your home, and it nurtures your family. It actually brings spiritual life and substance and resource into the vision that you have stated that you want to accomplish. This is why couples who are in healthy relationship dynamics actually make more money. They make more money than just single guys on their own, by and large. And it's because of her relaxed radiance and her ability to kind of co-manifest a vision with him. So what does a woman bring to the table? All of that. And she's hot and, and sex, whatever. Like, we could be real base about it, but that's what these people are missing. What do you bring to the table? The ability to pull in resources from heaven. Anything else? Do you need anything else?
That's going to be really hard to explain to most guys nowadays. So.
Sure. And but this is part of why I'm doing this work, because this is a missing piece. You know, the last thing I need is to watch another podcast of 22-year-olds who are arguing about what she brings to the table economically. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, nothing. She can bring negative 100% to the table, and her ability to pull resources from beyond the veil is enough to justify her beautiful radiance in my life.
Yeah. Oh boy. So, what are your thoughts on the red pill and the manosphere?
I don't know shit about the red. By the way, can I cuss on your show?
Yes.
Okay. So to be honest with you, I don't know shit about the red pill community and the manosphere. So that's a whole thing that I told somebody I'd look into, and because somebody asked me that. And I don't know, and I don't care, and my stuff is coming from a place that is like primarily oriented in the spiritual union, the divine union of two people. So y'all can bicker as much as you want, but the real juice is finding this dyad of like mutual beneficial stuff. Like, you come ready to give in whatever way your polarity has to give, and then you just light up the world. So this whole low vibe, like she did this and he did that, it's all so dumb. It's also so, and like everybody's got to go through it, right? But it's just a reflection of their own selfish consciousness.
Mm. So, why do some people think the relationship style of like the 50s and before is so oppressive and patriarchal?
Well, so where do we get this idea of patriarchy from? You know, men have all the power, right? Maybe in the physical world, maybe in the three. I mean, see, this is the thing. It's like if we're so myopic in the West as to only measure things in the gross national product and how much money a human being is in a return on investment, like what's the ROI on your kid? You're going to calculate the return, the financial return on investment for your child? No, it's stupid. You're bringing life into a world. You're I mean, you are participating in this grand experiment of humanity. And so if we're so myopic as to only look through a financial lens, or a work lens, or just a Western lens, what's the value that they're bringing? It's so dumb, and it misses the entire point of what femininity is. Femininity is beauty. It's dancing. It's creativity. It is spirituality. Femininity is the channel that God brings beauty through the earth to.
So,
Did you not like my answers? You're like,
okay, it's a lot. So, I'm thinking this like hmm. Let's say a woman wants to change her behavior in her partner, but she wants to do it in a feminine way. Modern women would just start screaming and demanding and being very aggressive and maybe scolding them like they're children. That's what I've seen, anyways. So, what is a feminine way to get your partner to change a behavior that you don't like?
Okay, so the premise of the question is a little bit weird, because a truly feminine woman trusts her man and has done the work to relax and not judge him. So what's actually happening is that a woman is slipping out of her feminine nature, judging him, and then leading him to do something that she wants. So both of those are masculine behaviors in the relationship, and they reflect an inverted dynamic. So if a woman wants to change a behavior in a man, in her man, the only thing there is to do is to look at how she doesn't trust him, look at how she's judging him, let that go, and open herself to be loved, and do the work to regain trust again. It's not a direct thing. Like, you don't lead your man. There's a way to
Okay.
share your feelings.
Okay, let me give you examples of
Yeah,
like
hit me.
my friends' experiences and stuff that I've heard. Like, for example, I have one friend, they were a great couple, and then the guy started drinking to excess.
Mm-hmm.
And he's stressed out from work, drinking, acting rude, checking out of everything. So that's not something where you can just be, I will trust the man.
Right.
to-
Right. Okay. So there's then two paths, right? You can invest in the relationship in hopes to change it, or you can leave. And the way to do that, and there are feminine ways to do both of those things. The feminine way to invest in the relationship is to share your feelings without judgment. You say, I feel concerned. He's drinking, okay? Is he going to perk up to your feeling? Is he going to ask you a follow-up question? Why are you concerned? I feel sad. Okay, why do you feel sad? Well, because you're drinking a ton, and I'm wondering, and I'm curious about what's wrong with you. I feel concerned because you're drinking a lot, and you're not able to get up for work, and you're hungover the next day. But you let him lead those things out of you. A real feminine way to you're providing this emotional information through which he can navigate his leadership. So if you take both sides and you say, and you kind of blame or lead, then he's got no space in the relationship. Or you'll invert him into his emotions, which is not really what we want to do. Now, let's say he doesn't respond to any of that. At some point, a woman who has self-worth is going to say, well, this isn't working. He doesn't care about my feelings. He's not asking follow-up questions. Or if he does, he's not following through on them. The feminine way to handle that is to merely float away. It is to be disinterested and to go find something that lights you up and that nourishes you.
Okay. Okay. I'm just trying to think of examples in my friends' relationships because everybody seems to be having a lot of problems lately.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, another one that came up is what happens when the woman starts making more money? She's very excited. She's like, oh, let's go on vacations. I have more money. Come with me to Europe. This is an example. Come with me to Europe. I'll pay for everything. You don't have to worry about anything. And then the guy gets there and he doesn't want to do anything. He just wants to be on his computer. And he's like, you go out by yourself because he's feeling maybe emasculated a little bit.
Yeah. I'm sorry your friends are having such trouble. I mean, this is the thing, is that sometimes people come to me and they're like, well, I did that and it ended up like this. If only life was a single cause situation, right? If this was like, oh, he was emasculated because she made too much money. Well, honestly, maybe he ate something bad and he was, he had a parasite in his brain. I have no idea what caused this guy to be on his computer. Maybe he's addicted to his computer. And it's got nothing to do with her making money. I think the thing is, you have to handle these things in communication. You can't just assume, especially as a woman, you can't assume that men are the way you think they are. And I'll tell you one way that this is a pervasive lie. He's intimidated by me.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He's not intimidated by you. He's just not interested. He's not threatened by you. He's just put off. There's a real difference between being intimidated by a woman and just not wanting her accomplishments. I had a video go viral the other day, and it was like, if you want a masculine man, don't lead on a date with your accomplishments. He's not going to be interested in your accomplishments. And my God, the backlash that I got, and there were like two stories. One is, I'm not going to dim my light for any man. Great. Don't dim your light. Not asking for that. Number two, he can't handle my accomplishments. He's intimidated by me. No, a masculine man is not intimidated by you. If he's a provider and a protector, then he already has it. It's like having two doorknobs on a door. Is it going to be useful in some cases where you're carrying groceries? Yeah, maybe. But for the most part, the door's already got a doorknob. You don't need two. What he needs is a doggy door. The door needs a doggy door. It doesn't need two doorknobs.
Okay. So let's see. Who do you think is messing up more in the dating world now, men or women?
I think if you are looking to blame if you're a man and you're looking to blame women, that's a bad place to look. If you're a woman and you're looking to blame a man, that's a bad place to look. The place that we actually have leverage to change things is by looking at what we are responsible for. So as a man, I'm looking at how my approach to, let's say, sex without commitment, how that affects my microcosm of the dating world. And then how that, and if I was replicated, if I was a million people and I behaved like I was, how would that change the dynamic in the ecosystem? So I have to look at like, what do I think the dysfunction is? What part of it is men's fault? And then what part of it have I participated in that's enabled that dysfunction? So if anybody's looking outside of their own gender for an answer about why things are so fucked up, they're just misguided. Like there may be truth to it. I'm not saying that there's not truth to it, but I'm saying you can't do anything about it. So you're just wasting your time. I mean, you're really just perpetuating more negativity.
Yeah, because I hear a lot on TikTok. I'm on there a lot. Anyways, so they're always talking about how men are allowed to cheat because it's just their nature to want variety, and women have to be like committed to just one man and be okay with him cheating. And then they say that if a woman sleeps with multiple men, she's no longer worth commitment. But then if she doesn't sleep with her on the first date, she doesn't have enough interest, so he has to move on.
These are children who are speaking about things that they don't understand.
But they're so old.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that they've lived that hard life. At some point you come to the place where you're like, okay, all of this back and forth, all of this childish like game playing, it doesn't lead you anywhere. What do you want to bring to the world? These are all 4-year-olds who are demanding their like a popsicle. You know, I want my popsicle. I want my pop. Like it's not going anywhere. At some point you go, what am I going to bring to this world? What's my legacy going to be? Am I going to have kids? Am I going to make a difference in my community? What's the best way to do that? Should I do that in partnership or should I do it alone? And if I do it in partnership, how should I show up for my partner in a way that honors them so that they can honor me back and we have like a healthy dynamic? Anything else is just like, I mean, they're just doing it for clicks, I guess. I don't know. It's just not worth a damn.
I know. Yeah, I've been married for like 15 years, so I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm just hearing about it because I have a lot of friends and they're telling me all these stories, and then I go online and it's insanity what they're saying nowadays. There's a complete war against marriage. They're like passport bros. Let's just go to another country and find a woman who will do whatever we say.
Well, that's an interesting thing that you frame it like find a woman who will do whatever we say. Because there may be some toxic men who think like that and who are so insecure that they can't have a real mutual dynamic. But there's a reality to the fact that the culture in America has nurtured a femininity that is disrespectful toward mutual respect. And so there's a lot of men who are just like, this isn't workable. And then also, if we're going to bring it back to what's the man's fault, well, he's not a good enough leader to actually do anything about it. Like the game is harder here because you have active disrespect. I mean, we're handling in a lot of cases real bratty people instead of somebody who's like actually interested in investing in something deep. And so, I mean, the game that it takes to lead a bratty person into health is much harder than it is to lead somebody who's interested and respectful into a healthy relationship. And so I don't always blame people for going elsewhere because the culture here is pretty messed up.
Yeah, the guys that I know are great guys, great providers. They're always married, relatively young, early 30s, and happy relationships for forever. But there's the other guys that are kind of like the leftover guys and the leftover girls. And they're the ones who just can't get along. And I think they're both a little narcissistic.
Yeah. So there's a way that we handle this word narcissism and polarity. And the idea that you would be integrated or that you would take both masculine and feminine approaches is actually an indicator of unworkable kind of narcissism. So to have a dynamic that works well, the one partner needs to be on one side of the equation, the other partner needs to be on the other side. And if you take both of those spaces, both that masculine and feminine space, there's no place for your partner to either be contributed to or to contribute. So in a way, it's a little bit narcissistic. Pat Allen is a researcher on this stuff, and she actually just directly calls it narcissism. If you need to be respected and cherished in the same amount, you're a narcissist. And that has to do with validating your emotions, your inner world, and also respecting your ideas, your outer world. And if you need both of those equally, there's no place for a partner to meet you. You could be, you either must be 100% right all the time, which is an impossibility because you're a tiny little consciousness in a single body, or you're going to steamroll anybody that challenges you.
Mhm. I met this single mom at a party a couple months ago, and she was very aggressive and very loud, and she was talking about how all men are trash nowadays. She goes and she meets them and they don't make as much money as she does, and they don't call her back quick enough. They don't make plans that are detailed enough. And she's going on with all her requirements, and I'm like, you're a single mom and you're talking about how men are trash in front of your son.
Yeah.
One. And then two, you're very aggressive. Like, are you even fun to be around?
The act of judging is a very masculine act. You pair that with the expectation that a man is going to lead on dates and plan things and call you back. And you have what we talked about, where you're dominating both sides of the equation. You basically have a narcissistic situation and a really kind of low vibe one at that, right? A one that's not fun to be around. Sometimes narcissists can be great fun to be around, right? Because they're just, they'll shine this way, then they'll shine that way. And this one doesn't sound like she's very fun to be around at all.
Yeah. So, anyways, what's the difference between a nice guy and a good man? And how does a guy know which one he is? And how does a woman figure out as quickly as possible which one she's dealing with on a date?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I did a video a while back about what a nice guy is. A nice guy is somebody who does something for another person with a covert desire to get something back in return. And so then when that thing is not met, when the return isn't met, by the way, it wasn't asked for, that's why it's covert. When it wasn't met, there is often like a backlash toward the person that he gave a gift to or did something nice for, or he could potentially internalize it and just kind of beat himself up over it. A nice guy is in quotes, right? Because he's not nice. It's an attempt to take acknowledgement. It's an attempt to take attention or to take affection by doing something to earn it, but not disclosing that it's a request. He's not disclosing that it's a transaction. He's just saying, "Oh yeah, I'll buy you cigarettes." And then she's like, "Ew, she gives him the ick." Did I say that right? He gives her the ick, and he's like, not, and then he's like, "Why did I ever buy you cigarettes? That was the dumbest thing." Okay, so that's nice guy. A kind man or a good man will be like, "You need cigarettes? Here's some cigarettes." He doesn't want anything in return. It is a gift or a service that is aligned with the character of somebody whose needs are met, who knows himself as a gift to the world. So a good man is a gift to the world. He provides where he sees need, and he's able to. A nice guy is doing shit to get his unmet needs fulfilled. Now, we could take this a step further that I didn't in my video, and there's also a female version of this archetype, and this is the overgiver. And she's the one that burns out, and she's the one that says, he doesn't notice me at home. He never acknowledges my needs. And it's because all of those gifts of service are actually a desire to be acknowledged and a desire to be loved. And it's being built on top of a lack of self-love, and it's being built on top of a lack of self-worth. And so that's a dynamic I have a little more compassion for, but it's the same thing. It has a different skin on it.
Okay, yeah, I've seen both of these people. One that I see a lot online is when guys go, if you go on a date and the guy pays, you're expected to put out because he
Weird.
paid. So, and I'm like, whoa, is she a prostitute? What's going on here?
Yeah, it's super weird. Now, okay, so I have a rule of thumb with this, and it was hard because I developed the rule of thumb when I wasn't living it. But if I'm going to go on a date with a woman, the cost of her company is covering all of her expenses. That is the cost of a feminine woman's company. Now, I said feminine woman. I didn't say woman. Because if a woman shows up like your single mother friend who was very aggressive and very demanding and no fun to be around, well, by all means, you can cover your own meal, you can cover your own putt putt, whatever it is that we're out doing. But a feminine woman is going to inspire provision and protection. She's going to actually, it's not a matter of a rule of thumb. It's a matter of like, if I'm a masculine man and I'm around that radiance, I am inspired instinctually to cover the bill because I want you to be able to relax. I want you to be able to open and to experience the beauty of life. This is what women are for. You're here to experience the beauty of life, to feel it all in your body. And for us to be able to stand around that radiance is worth paying for. And so that's that part of the rule of thumb. If you want sex, the price of that's devotion. Like, you devote to a woman, and I'm not saying it's got to be locked down by the state, but I'm saying, like, you are saying, if you open to me in this deep and vulnerable way, I will show up for you in a way that justifies your openness, that makes it safe. So that's the kind of level. And I kind of came up with this before I was really ready for it. I wasn't necessarily ready to devote, and I, kind of coming in from more of a playing the field mentality to the seriousness and the weight of intimacy. It should be taken quite seriously.
So I have a daughter, and I'm wondering, how can I help her when she's old enough to date, to find these good men? And my idea is, let's take it back old school. I want all the guys to come over here and meet the family first. I want them to meet the dad, the mom, and we suss them out. And then you guys go on the date. He gives a speech like, I want her home by this time or whatever. Do you think that would be like, we need to go back to that?
You say back to it, and it does, like, we are kind of looking back at some models here. But what if we look back at the models and we say, okay, why did they do that? What was the point of it? And we really kind of deconstruct it and say, what was the value in this? What did they get from it? I don't just want to watch a 50s TV show and like recreate whatever was in the 50s TV show. I want to actually like design this thing from the ground up. What does it mean now? And and by the way, I have a 14-year-old daughter, so I'm right in this game with you. Now, luckily, her interest isn't quite so hard oriented toward boys at this point. But she still shares like crushes with me. And she'll see a guy down the street with a skateboard. She's like, I had a super crush on him like last year. That's cute. I love that she shares that with me. It is my job right now as her father to provide and protect her. And if I'm going to protect her, then I need to take responsibility for whatever comes into her life. Because if I'm asleep at the wheel and she's traumatized, that's on me. And that's not something that's something that sticks with her for the rest of her life unless she invests and does the work. And like, nobody gets out alive, right? We're all going to come through teenagehood and dating with some scars. But it's my job as a dad to minimize those as much as possible, which means meeting these kids. It means, give me his phone number. Let's have a talk. Like, let's go crazy with it. I got nothing to lose. I don't give a shit if you hate me. Like, I got a bigger priority, and that's to care for this girl.
Yeah, I remember when I was young and dating, I would be scared to bring boys to the house because what if my dad didn't like them? It was just it was warped mentality because they didn't enforce that in society. Like, none of my friends brought their dates to meet the family. They just met somewhere and they had their date and then they went home. They didn't even tell their parents they were having a date. So when I got older and I met my husband, the first thing he was like, okay, I want to take you somewhere. Let me go meet your dad. And he walks in, he shakes his hand, he looks in his eyes, and he's like, I'm going to take care of her. And my dad was like so happy. And I was like, wow, oh my goodness. That's never happened before. Whereas the other boys, they would come and they would not engage him like that. And he didn't like them.
Right. Right. I mean, it's a real sign of maturity and respect and honor to be able to say, like, to be able to understand that there's a continuity of care from a father to a husband. And, this is something I'm still, I'm in the middle of it, right? Like I'm in the middle. I'm in this emergent father of a teenage daughter. So I'm still working this out, but you better believe that I'm going to make sure to the best of my ability that I have a good relationship with my daughter so that she trusts me to give her feedback on who she's dating. I would hate to have her turn 18 and be like, you're out because you overstepped your bounds. Like we got to do this in partnership. We got to do it in dialogue. I want her to trust me and trust my wisdom. So this is a longer game, but I think you're right. I think there's some really valuable stuff about including families in the dating process that we may have left on the table.
Yeah, when I see my friends that have long-term stable marriages, everybody's always happy. They don't get into this drama that everybody online is posting about. It doesn't happen to them. They're like, okay, whatever. It's because they have such a close connection with their family and their extended family, and everybody meets. His family will come over to dinner to meet her family, and they'll get along, and then the kids will eventually, get married. But now I feel like the families, everybody's detached from their families. And I feel like when you go to school now in colleges, they're teaching you, oh, your families are old style. They're all this or that. And we don't need to listen to them anymore. They're, whatever. You know what's going on in the schools.
Yeah. Did you hear Jordan Peterson spoke about that, about what's happening in the universities?
Have you seen the before and after when the daughters go to college?
Oof, I did. I did see that. I let my daughter dye her hair pink and shave half of her head when she was 10 so that she got it out of her system. I think she was actually 8. So, and she's like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. I got that type of expression out. Yeah, maybe she hits it back when she's in college, but there's a real, like, if you don't have a family to kind of look to set your values, then it's a bit of a vacuum. And I was raised this way. I didn't really there was a bit of a vacuum where my values were. And so the conclusions that I've come to haven't been inherited. They've been rediscovered over a long path of making a ton of mistakes. So like if somebody listens to this who's known me in the last 10 years, they're gonna be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? He was like the worst of the worst. Yeah. So, and you come back and this is not just me taking values for granted. This is me having churned through them and learned the hard lessons and burned bridges and hurt people on the way to discovering how not to hurt people.
Mm. So what are some mistakes that you see women nowadays make specifically?
Yeah, it depends on what they want. Like everything is contextual. So if we're talking about a mistake that a woman's making, we have to also talk about what she wants to get. So will you tee that up? I mean, like who's
Okay.
listening and what do they want?
Let's say a woman wants to get married and have a family. What are some things that modern women are doing nowadays that prevent this from happening when they're dating?
Yeah. So the biggest picture is that she hasn't healed trauma from past relationships, and she's projecting that trauma into new relationship and new dating. It's just if I get a sense, if I'm dating somebody and I get a sense that they haven't healed past projections, or if they're like, all men are like this, or all guys are like this, everybody I date's like this, I'm like, okay, that's a real clear indicator that you're still not seeing me. You're seeing your past and you're projecting it onto me. And that's just, it's not that they can't have a happy life. It's that they have a lot of work to do in order to be able to be present and to be relaxed and to trust a new man. So the number one mistake I see women make, is that they don't go back and really heal their trauma to where it's neutral in their nervous system when they think about their ex. So where they can go like, yeah, I hope he's good. That there's just no charge about it. There's no, your nervous system doesn't light up. You're not blaming him. You're not a victim to him anymore. You're just like, yeah, I hope he's good. And it's just flat. Once you get to that flatness, then you know that you've made some progress in healing, and you can actually start a relationship too where you can see the person for who they are instead of what all men do or what all men are.
Yeah. So one red flag for me is whenever they say my ex is crazy, whether it's a male or a female, I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
not okay with that. The ex maybe had trauma and you're supposed to forgive them so you can move on. But like saying all men or all women are this, oh, it drives me nuts.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what's funny is that I had that. I mean, I sniff around for that because that's maybe one of the things that you should know. Like, tell me, and maybe you don't ask it directly because somebody might sniff it out. You can't really go, tell me about your ex. I mean, maybe if they're dumb, they'll be like, oh, he was awful. But you sneak it in a little bit, or like, how long you just look for it. You look how they characterize the other person because they're the one that picked the other person. And even if you think you're great, everybody thinks they're great. Like I'm catch. They're going to turn you into somebody. They're going to turn you into the crazy ex. They're going to turn you into what they turned him into, or they're going to turn you into what she turned, whatever
Yes.
gender it is. They'll do it to
Yes.
you. So look at how they characterize them. I had a relationship about 10 years ago where the woman talked mad shit about her ex, and I didn't know this then. And man, it visited me 4 times, 5 times harder than it ever did, that person. I was vilified even more. So that's a mistake I won't make again.
Yeah. So I remember when I met my husband, he asked me about my past relationships and whatever. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm still friends with my exes. It didn't work out. It took like 2 years to you know, have some distance. And now we're friends. And I met his new girlfriend. She's very sweet and whatever. And then he's like, what? Because he's never heard that from anybody before. He's like, so he's not crazy. I'm like, well, he cheated on me, but, his dad was going through something and life happens, but I think he learned from it. Whatever.
Yeah. Is your husband American?
Yes.
Okay. He
How do you
sounds
know?
he sounds like he's coming from a more traditional culture.
Very. He's from Indiana.
He's from Indiana. Nice.
Yeah. So I think he's the son of a preacher. So
There you go. Yeah. Those old traditional values.
even though he was a dirty whore when I met him.
Nice. We have those phases. We do. We do. I think the question that might speak to some people, and you talked about it earlier about the difference in expectations between a woman's purity and a man's purity, and I think it does. It comes down to the how much we're traumatized by our own poor participation and poor behavior. And whatever, I don't know, this is a little bit out of my league, but it appears to me that women carry more trauma from having more sexual partners than men carry. And it's not that men get off unscathed. It's not that it's good behavior. It's not that it's ideal behavior at all, but it's that it seems to affect our ability to love and devote less so than it does her system.
Hmm. I just think when a woman's been hurt so many times, or broken up with, or cheated on, or what have you, she just stops trusting and stops wanting. From what I've seen from friends, that seems to always happen. Like the first breakup, she can kind of get over it. The second, it's a little bit better. And then after like the 10th one, she's kind of like all men are trash.
Yeah, yeah, and this makes sense because we really need to acknowledge the hormonal profile differences between men and women. Women have higher baseline cortisol, and their estrogen and cycles affect how that cortisol affects how they perceive the world and their emotionality and their sensitivity to negative emotions. They are on average higher in trait neuroticism if we're going to go through the big five. So that attunement to negative emotion, of course, you're going to be more traumatized by things that are off in the environment or mistreatment. That's part of the emotional information that in a healthy couple we need from you. Like, what's wrong with this picture? Tell me so I can go fix it. I'm gonna be a little stoic. I'm gonna be a little one-minded, but I need you to give me the information about what's wrong with the environment because your particular hormonal profile is attuned to that and it's helpful.
So I want to give you an example of how I feel that women can make a man cheat by like a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is an example I have.
Ooh, okay.
So
It's
one of
like you're
my
starting off victim blaming here. This is great.
no, but I think that, you in this example, I think it can happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, one of my friends' mom, she's going through menopause, she's feeling down about herself. Her husband has always worked the night shift, never been a problem for 40 years. Now that she's having these hormonal fluctuations, she's starting to go a little nuts. Now she thinks he's cheating on her or he's going to leave her for someone. It's a hormonal thing, obviously.
Hmm.
So then she starts showing up at the work. She sees there's a coworker that's good looking. So she starts evil eyeing her and making like faces at her and saying, don't talk to her or whatever. And it's so obvious that the woman notices. And then she goes to him and she goes, what's your wife? Did I do anything to offend her? And then he starts confiding in her. I don't know what's going on with her. She's been acting like this lately. Like, I don't know what to do. She's like accusing me of things. Obviously, I haven't done anything. And then the woman starts going, well, she shouldn't treat you like that. You're such a good man. I would never. And then flash forward a couple months.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something really mechanical and predictable about the law of attraction, that you pull into your experience what you have a high emotion about. And in this case, the emotion is fear or terror. He's going to cheat on me. And whether it plays out in the way that you described, or there's some subtlety, or it plays out in a different way, she's going to end up attracting undesirable consequences because she's so focused on fear, and she's emitting that fear, and she's looking and selecting things in her experience that affirm that fear. And so whether it's cheating or whether it's abuse, there is a real piece where people who are experiencing negativity are responsible in some way for selecting that into their experience and not doing the difficult work of minding their mind, of focusing their attention and curating their attention on things that are going to support their lives. If their attention is being hijacked by their fears or the news or whatever, they're going to have shitty lives. They're going to draw those things into your awareness, and they're going to play out, and however mechanics play out, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. So I remember when I was younger, my mom was super afraid of guys cheating. Her dad cheated on her mom and she found out about it later, and it was a trauma she had. So then when I got married, she's constantly like, you better do this or he's going to find somebody else, or you better do that or he's going to do this. And then she gave me all this anxiety, and I'm like, what? I have to check this. I have to like do this. Don't let him have this. Don't let him do this, blah, 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 blah. And it's so much anxiety. And then I'm freaking out. So I'm like telling my husband, I'm like, she's saying this. Are you going to cheat on me? What, am I doing this wrong? Like, should I cook more, clean more? Like, what's going on? I'm freaking out. So then he finally calls her and he's like, leave my wife alone. I am not going to cheat on her. Stop. Do not put that on her. Do not put that on us. And then I calmed down. And then every time she brought it up, because it's a thing she has from her past and she hasn't dealt with it, I just shut it down immediately. And then I tell my husband and he shuts her down.
Yeah. And his leadership is powerful there. That's amazing.
But I mean, I can see how that can be like what they call generational trauma, because she's pushing that on to the woman. And then she internalizes it like, oh, this must be how it is. And the anxiety can cause that to happen.
Right. 100%. Yeah. I mean, we think we exist in this vacuum of like, I come out of the womb and I'm all my choices and all my values are my own thing. And God, we are so responsive to our hormones and our environments and our culture and our parents and our traumas. We're basically automatons that are chained to our environments and our past. Like very little comes to actually our ability to make a choice about anything. We're just kind of responding all the time. We're NPCs.
So I also heard that when parents get a divorce and they have a daughter, that when the male figure is out of the home, the biological male leaves the home, that the woman, the daughter will become hypersexualized or develop faster. And maybe biologically that's so that she can find another male protector mate. Have you heard of that?
I have heard that daughters who have good relationship with their fathers have later puberty expressions. And I pat myself on the back for that because my daughter went through a late puberty too. Yeah, it's not that they are hypersexualized necessarily. I mean, but there is, you discover as a young woman that you have this tool that can get you what you need. And so that can be a strategy that some young women take. But it's not necessarily, the strategy for everybody, at least crossing my fingers.
Yeah, I definitely think that having a biological male in the house really delays that for a girl. And I'm thinking back about old traditions, if the husband dies in some cultures, the brother marries the wife, and I'm like, well, that's a biological male, so that could be good for the kids. Maybe that's why, and we don't really know why these things were traditions.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it comes down to protecting the radiance and softness of the women. Like that is so valuable and so nourishing for a man that I'm going to make sure that, if I die, somebody's got to care for this woman because the feminine essence is so valuable in the world. Without a feminine essence in the world, this is a hard, cold, dead place. And I don't think people realize how valuable it is. I don't think women realize the gift that they have when they sell it out to go work 80 hours a week at a law firm. I don't think they really have run the calculations on the spiritual cost of that.
Hmm. So, with so many women now, okay, I have a better question. When you go out with couples, most of them, they're either both working, or unfortunately the woman is working more than the husband a lot of times. And then you have a traditional couple where the husband's working and the woman's at home raising the kids. And then the men who are not working as much, not making as much, and their wives are making more, they will go to the man and they would try to like demean his relationship with the woman, like, oh, that's so traditional. Well, my woman contributes unlike yours, or they'll say things like that. And those things are like culturally being like accepted, like, okay, now it's okay to like criticize traditional values, traditional gender roles, traditional families. Whereas I don't know, that wasn't the case before. It would be like fine, like nobody would call their great grandma useless because she stayed home with the kids.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of describing just very immature people who don't understand how to respect each other. So, I mean, I would like to be a fly on the wall for the conversation, just so I could like call them out and be like, "You guys you're being a dick. Stop it." But I do want to point out this stratification. There are traditional values. They work really well for a lot of people. They also have their limits in terms of a desire to go explore and express oneself in the world. And then so you get these people who kind of leave the nest and they go crazy. This is like the Rumspringa. We're bolting the Amish tradition and we're just going to go party. And then at the end of Rumspringa, which I think is a year, I'm not totally sure about that tradition. You're invited back to, do you want to stay with our lifestyle or do you want to go out and party? And a lot of them they come back because that's what they know. Now we're in a season, I believe, culturally that's a little bit Rumspringa. It's a little bit like all of this tradition, all of these family values, everything we were doing, it was all oppressive, it was all bad, it was all wrong. So we're going to do whatever we want. Now, I embraced that 100%. I was doing what was right in my own eyes. To pull a quote, I came to the end of the usefulness of that, and I rediscovered completely as a utilitarian the value of doing things in the way that they're prescribed through tradition. It's like this stuff has, even if it was just made up by some, white guy a long time ago, the fact that people have been doing it for so long and that we've built institutions around doing it and that our culture mostly interacts still with that legacy means it's still an easier path to go in life with less drama than it is to go off and do every crazy thing that you can think of. Sam Smith, I'm looking at you.
Yeah. So, one thing that what do you think about Andrew Tate? I want to ask you that.
I don't know the guy.
You haven't been on TikTok?
Oh, I mean, I know I've seen his videos, but I don't know him personally. This is the thing. I mean, like, is he playing a character or is he not? I mean, because there's some stuff there's some stuff that pops up that I'm like, oh, yep, he is encouraging men to be protectors and providers and to honor the feminine. My message is lockstep with that. His values around being able to sleep with multiple women and use that, my values don't align with that part. His forcefulness and his delivery, I honestly think people are more responsive to his delivery than they are to the content of his message, which is just, I mean, that's how people take in information. so, so what do I think of Andrew Tate? I think that some of the stuff that he's doing, I don't think he considers the cost to the feminine essence that having casual sex with women has on them. And I think his encouragement for men to step up and provide and protect for women is spot on. And I think the value of that feminine essence is just not being carried through in his understanding of how to treat women in the bedroom.
Yeah. I mean, I get that he says, well, kings and queens could have multiple women. And I'm like, most men are not kings. They're not billionaires. They're not trillionaires. They're not like the Sheik in Dubai. They're just regular dudes. They can't afford to have 50,000 kids from 20 different women. What are you talking about?
Right. Somebody asked me this like just a couple of days ago. They were like, "Well, is there any way to do polyamory right, or any way to do casual right?" And I said, to be honest with you, I think probably the Latter Day Saints, the Mormons, have it close as you can, if you have enough money to take care of another woman for the rest of her life and bring her on as your wife, then that's probably the closest model to honoring the feminine radiance and the feminine essence that I see playing out anywhere, and that's not legal. So
Yeah. And I know in Islam, they do allow that, but you have to be able to provide a house for each woman, a car for each woman, the exact same provisions for each woman completely equally. So that means you got to be rich.
you got to do it. You got to be pulling it in. Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of women that would be okay with that, that maybe they don't have good family values and like they're like, yeah, well, I just care about like being provided for.
Sure. It's it's interesting. Like if things cost that much, if sex or a woman costs that much, you really have to consider, like, is this worth it? Is this worth a house and a car for a second house and a car? Is this worth really doing? So it may not be if we really think it through. And that's really part of my message is think through how much it costs to properly provide for a woman who is giving her body to you. It's a lot. It's a lot more than we think.
So, what are some benefits becoming more masculine can have for men?
What are some benefits? You kind of just do it for its own sake. Like, I think masculinity is like the original personal growth path for men. We do it because it is the fulfillment of our biology, and it's the fulfillment of the archetype. We're warriors and kings, and these archetypes that we can live into. You become more masculine because it is the access to unlocking the greatest potential. And same thing with feminine women. Like, what's the outcome to becoming more feminine? It's literally just honoring your body, honoring your nature, and growing into the fullest expression of yourself. Because at the root, we're all human, right? At the root, we're all just human beings. But that first distinction, the first time it splits and bifurcates, it splits into male and female. And so you can say, I want to be the best human I can be. Awesome. Great. We're all there. How do I do it in more detail? Well, then I want to look at my gender, my sex. And I say, okay, well, I'm a man, so I want to be the best man I can be. What does it look like to be the best man I can be? Or I'm a woman. I want to be the best woman I could be. What does that look like? So it gives us a little more detail along the path. And then from there, you could pull in Jung and you could talk about the archetypes. You could say, well, I'm a king, or I'm a jester, or I'm the fool, or a warrior. What do those archetypes paint a picture for that I'm going to step into and I'm going to take on as my path to be the best I can be?
So, you have a daughter.
Yeah.
How do you encourage her to be more feminine? Is there anything that you can do to
Yeah.
counteract what's going on?
So I open every door for her whenever I have the opportunity. So she loves it, and then I talk to her about why I'm doing that. I talk to her about what it like. It's a symbol so that she can sit and relax when she gets in the car, that she knows she's honored. She knows that her essence and her being is honored. And so really we're talking about that law of attraction thing, about pulling in what you fear or pulling in what you expect so I'm my intention is to give her this imprint and expectation that her femininity will be honored. Now, she's a goofball. She's like me. Like I don't know if I show up on a podcast as a goofball, but I am 100% a goofball. And so she's not like this heel wearing radiant person. She's more of like the slightly awkward painter, musician, goofy, funny, hilarious kid. But I want to give her this impression, like wherever you go, look for men to serve you. Don't expect it. Just don't expect it in an entitled way. Expect it in a silent, subconscious way that you know you're worthy of it. So that's one of the ways that I kind of encourage her feminine, essence.
When I was little, my dad would always open the door for me, and I thought that was weird, but then I just got used to it. So and for some reason, guys who never did it, they picked up on it and they started doing it.
Yeah, you really call it in. And the thing is, I do it in front of my son. So before I started doing this, and I started doing it when she was about 13. So it took me a little while. But when I started doing it, before I started doing it, the kids would call shotgun. And so whoever called it and ran to the door, like they got shotgun. But as soon as we started doing it around 13, now anytime my daughter's in the car, she gets shotgun, and he takes the back seat as a matter of service. And I'm watching my son do that, and he's 12, he's younger. So I'm watching my son serve her feminine essence as a matter of course as well. So that's part of it too.
So what do you think about how women are, whenever a man opens a door for them, whenever a man does anything that's nice or even looks at them, they're saying, oh, he's being sexist or he's objectifying me, and they'll put it online and be like, look at this gross man.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stories that you're bringing, like I get it. I'm just like, these are just
Have
idiots.
you seen the one that was all over online about this girl goes to a gym dressed like a complete you know what, and then she's bending over and a guy just happens to glance, or he's trying to get to like a machine or something, and she's videotaping him and she blasts him on the internet, like, look at him looking at me like this. And it's just like, I don't understand. Why wouldn't anybody look at that, first of all?
I only heard backlash to her
Yes.
about it. And so that to me says that there's some sanity in how people are to share public spaces. And the thing is, I in no way want to justify poor behavior from men, but isn't it actually good for the species to be attracted to somebody who is showing skin? Isn't it good to want to continue to procreate? I mean, if that instinct weren't there, if my head didn't turn instinctually when I saw a beautiful woman, we probably wouldn't be here. Like my genes wouldn't have survived through, thousands of, hundreds of thousands of years or longer. I don't know. It's a feature, not a bug. And if you want to go exploit that feature and then also get your victim story payoff in it, then I think the calling her out on the internet was probably, a reflection of sanity in some ways.
And we get so little of those these days.
Seems like it, yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on catcalling?
I always ask consent to catcall. I go, excuse me, may I catcall you? No, I don't know. I've never catcalled anybody. Maybe I'm just like really out of touch with. Have you been catcalled? Is this something you've experienced?
Yes, I'm totally fine with it. I think it's great.
Tell me
more of this.
Tell me what happens. What
I'm
what's
walking,
stuff that you like?
Yeah, I'm walking by and they're like, "Oh my god, you look so good in those pants, girl," or whatever, some stupid thing. It could be some kid or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, thank you. That's so sweet. You made my day." And then I keep walking. And then
What's
other women will be like, "Oh, you have degraded me and you've objectified me." And I'm like, "I don't know."
what is the difference between a compliment and a catcall, though?
I don't see it. Maybe if
What
it's
if it?
really rude and vulgar, but I've never
Yeah,
had that.
you've never had. Okay, so that's what I understand
Yeah.
catcalling to be, is that
No.
you're sexualizing a person that you don't know who's walking by in a public space.
Well, I mean, it is sexualizing, but it depends on how vulgar the words you choose are. I mean, saying I look good in pants is saying that my butt looks good in those pants. I get that. But he's not saying the vulgar way.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, I don't. I'm honestly, I'm more just like if there's something to be complimented about somebody, I'm not going to withhold a compliment. I just think people need more compliments in the world,
Yeah.
and I also think that unless a woman has invited me to sexualize her, I should probably keep it to myself.
Yeah, but I like compliments, especially when you get older. It's nice.
Yeah, compliments all the time. And the thing is, I do it to older women more because I feel less anxiety about it.
Well, yeah.
Like I'll
It
do.
is, yeah, definitely. Yeah. You have to be around the same age or then it could be a little weird.
I know I just feel like I'll compliment. I won't compliment a dude as much. I used to, but then I realized how weird it was. But I'll compliment a woman who is like there's not a real chance that we're gonna get together, because I would like to spread joy, and if I spread that joy with an 80-year-old or a 20-year-old, it doesn't matter, but it's easier for me to spread it with the 80-year-old because she's probably not thinking that I'm a creep as much as the 20-year-old might.
I've also noticed when going out, I have a lot of friends that are in their 20s. I'm old, but I hang out with all sorts of people around. And what girls act like now in public settings, like we'll go to an event for like a product somebody's launching or whatever, and there'll be men there and there'll be women there. And the women, these are all influencers. I don't know if that matters, but imagine female influencers. And a guy will come up to the group of girls and try to talk to one, and the rest of the girls will go in front of him and say, "Stay away, how dare you? That's so disrespectful."
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
talking to a girl. These girls don't even like men saying hi.
Uh, I don't know what else to tell you other than like, wow. I mean, it's just gonna.
I can
No,
see why guys are so angry.
I mean, angry or discouraged or just
Depressed.
depressed. Like, first of all, I do think that being a quote unquote influencer has something to do with it, because your whole life is oriented around, how do I set this up so that I can get attention and look good. And
And
so
then you get it and you freak out.
so if you're inserting yourself as this fake protector because you're so compassionate, and when there's like maybe not even a clear threat there, I mean, we are dealing with higher traits of narcissism, which I think there was a study that was done recently around hyper users of Instagram displaying female hyper users of Instagram displaying higher traits of narcissism. So if that's the type of influence we're talking about, then yeah, you're going to grandstand on your own compassion and create drama that you can protect your friend from where none exists, so that you can, pat yourself on the back. It's unfortunate, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And then these same women will be like, "Oh, there's no good guys. There's no guys to date." I'm like, you just insulted 10 guys that tried so hard and they were so nervous to come and talk to you. And that's how you acted to them.
Yeah. Yeah. The terror that women carry around, either because of personal experience or secondhand stories from the culture about their terror of men. First of all, you're in a smaller frame as a woman. You are physically more vulnerable to attack. That is not a great setup. So you need to be able to trust men. But if you've had personal experiences where you can't trust men, and the culture tells you that you can't trust men, then you're walking into public places with this deep tissue terror, and men can feel that. good men, good attuned men can feel that, and they don't want to add to your burden, and they will stay away. The way forward is to go inside and to resolve your terror, and to go get some healing about the stuff that happened to you, and to unplug from the stories that keep clouding your mind about how bad men are, and to start to soften, and to start trusting God, and to start trusting men again. And you'll watch them show up and care for you.
So what about okay, this is my single mom thing. I
Yeah.
see a lot of single moms become very overbearing and encouraging their sons to be very emotional, in touch with their feminine side or what have you. And they just become whiny crybabies. And I can see how that can progress to a non-provider, a non-masculine man. But the culture seems to be like, let's feminize the little boys. Have
Yeah.
you seen that?
There's okay. We'll walk this back a bit. If you like the government, you don't like the government as much as the government likes the government. The government thinks they are the shit at doing things. They're going to save everybody from everything. What is in the way of the government saving everybody from everything are strong men with values who will push back when you try to insert a solution for them or their family that goes against what they value. And so what is the best way to come in and to save everybody and have centralized control over a group of people? It's to make men weak. And what's a way to make men weak? You make them emotional, so you can I guess, what do you call it? Manipulate them. That's right. That's the word. You manipulate them through their emotions. And so this whole idea that men need to become more emotional or be more in touch with with their feminine side, is actually playing into the hands of people who would desire to dominate you and your family and overrun your values for their own power and their own manipulative agenda. That's the big, broad cultural analysis there. The second is, what are you eating that is causing your testosterone to be so low? Stop eating that. Why aren't you getting enough sunlight and lifting heavy things? Go do that stuff. Take care of your own hormones. And the emotions that you feel will start to diminish as a man. And that will be good, because then you'll be able to show up for people and not get blown off course by your own big fifis.
Yeah. And have you noticed that not only are women becoming more masculine, but the levels of PCOS in the population went, I think it was like maybe a 12%. Now it's going to be almost 50%. 50%. That means high testosterone. That means higher than a standard man's testosterone these women have.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. Will you send me that study? I would like to.
Okay.
I'm very interested in the hormonal effects on both men and women, particularly of sex hormones.
Yeah, definitely. I think a contributor to that is the birth control, and whatever's in our food and our water, something is, because when we get more more estrogens in the food supply, the water supply, for women, the excess will go back and convert into more testosterone. So it's like the more these chemical fake estrogen mimickers, the more testosterone the woman will make, making her aggressive, more masculine.
Right. And then you have you take what is a polarized relationship that and this is what people don't necessarily understand, is polarity prescriptive or descriptive? And which is to say, am I telling people how to act so that their stuff works right? Or was polarity designed to describe two healthy people who happen to work in a functional way? And it's a little bit of both. But we can talk about two people, a woman whose estrogen is on point and a man whose testosterone is on point. They don't need to learn polarity nearly as much as a man who's got no testosterone and a woman who's got a ton of testosterone. So in some ways, polarity is a description of a healthy, balanced couple. You can take it on like it's a class, or like you're learning something, but really, we're just kind of describing how stuff works well. And if your hormones are all out of whack, it's not working well.
Yeah. So, what do you think about women wasting their 20s partying and then in their 30s or late 30s trying to get married?
It's bad. It's bad. And why, like, but everybody's got to go through it. I mean, if I know you think I'm going to say it's bad, so I said it's bad, but then this is what's under it. If that is what you have to get out of your system in order to like be a healthy, fully present human, then you have to do it. Like, I spent a lot of years, the better part of a decade getting all of that stuff out of my system. I knew 2 years in that I was like, this needs to kind of wrap up here. And I couldn't really wrap it up. I had to like really just wring the towel out of my own desires or my own doing whatever I wanted to do, so that I could come to a place where I wasn't prematurely like just shutting myself down and saying like, all right, now I'm an adult. Now it's time to do adult things. And so the same things happening in our culture. Like, young women are being presented with tantalizing opportunities to send their dopamine through the roof. And they're going to do that until it stops being fun. The unfortunate part is that the value that they're bringing to a relationship is in large part their softness, their beauty, and their youth. And so if they keep hitting the dopamine button, not realizing that the clock is ticking on their softness, their beauty, and their youth, they may find that they're unable to attract the type of man that they want once they've stopped pulling the bar on the dopamine machine.
And have you heard about how women choose different partners when they're on hormonal birth control versus when they're off of it?
I haven't looked into the studies, but I've heard it anecdotally. Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll choose a more feminine, fatherly type, beta type male when they're on birth control. And then when they get off birth control, like let's say to have a kid, they'll find they're not attracted to this person and the smell is off and all those things.
Yeah. It messes like in so many ways. We are just automatons to our hormones. And you start getting in there and messing about and you think it doesn't affect what you choose and what you eat and what you do and how you act. It absolutely does. Everything we put in our body does.
So as far as like the chemicals in the environment, are you doing anything for your children to like help avoid that exposure?
We try to lean away from processed foods. So I'm a big red meat. I'm a big like organic red meat eater. So I'm like meat and veggies. I could go further with it for sure. So in this way, I have ideals that I'm not necessarily meeting. My son has a very, very naturally expressed testosterone. I mean, he's like not even really hit puberty yet, and he's already getting a little mustache, and his voice is deep, and he just walks around with more command than I ever did. And probably, if you looked at him and me, like, you're like, is this guy's kid? I mean, he's just like he's a dude. He's a real solid dude in a way that I wasn't, when I was 12. There are things that we could do better for sure. And mostly in terms of diet. And then also there are just other environmental causes, like the stuff that I don't know about, like like microplastics and air and living in the city. There's definitely stuff that we could do to shore it up.
Mm. So when it comes to your daughter, what are you going to tell her when it comes to like choosing a career? Are you going to say, be like, forget about having a family and kids and just work on your career and like do a long-term career, like a PhD or an MD or something like that? Or are you going to tell her, maybe you can do both, but focus on also finding someone to make a family?
So in terms of MD or PhD, I think that she is more creative in that sort of thing. And honestly, like, this is taking the podcast in a little different direction, but I'm not sure that our existing system of careers is going to be around a whole lot longer. I mean, we're watching kind of white collar and creative and any kind of desk work get subsumed into AI really fast. and you just need to add like a couple of competent robots to take care of the rest of the jobs. And what are we left with? Like, we're on the precipice of something that's like completely unknown to the human race. So, I mean, you can feed an AI a set of scans of like lungs, and it will tell you like what lungs are, they say these ones have tumors and these don't. And then put in ones that humans can't identify the tumors in, and the AIs identify it. Like, they do a better job than doctors with like a very small sample size. So what does that mean for education and doctors and lawyers? Like, it's all like, we're a year out from this being just demolishing our entire economy if we're not careful. So what do I say to my daughter is, I don't know, like, hang out with me. Like, let's hole up in hole up in the mountains together. We'll learn how to chop wood and carry water.
Yeah, I've tried to think about like a world where creative jobs are taken away, intellectual jobs are taken away. Everything seems to be, on its way out. So I'm like, what would be left? And I'm thinking maybe in-person experiences would be left. So
Prostitution.
Maybe, oh my God, not that. No, I think those are going to be taken by those robots, those sex bots.
Sex robots? Yeah.
Yes.
Now we've got the title for the show. Or at least, we've got a marker, like, this is their sex robot section.
Yes.
Just want to do it for your clicks.
So can you imagine a world where there is something else for us to do all day to make money?
This is really weird, right? Because we had Andrew Yang coming in several years ago talking about UBI, Universal Basic Income. And that places the state at a level of control that is very uncomfortable for anybody who might have a dissenting opinion, especially when we introduce central bank digital currencies and the type of monitoring of our behavior, thoughts, and communications that we have online right now. We are, we are another faux emergency away from the implementation of these things. And I don't think it's a positive thing necessarily. So I'm a little bit negative about it short term.
Head to the mountains.
I'm a head to the mountains kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes longer. It takes longer to live when you've got to hunt your food and get your water. And you might not live as long. You might get eaten by a bear, but it'll be your life. It'll be your truth.
Yep. So, well, that's a fun way. Let's not end it on that. Tell me something that women can do to have better polarity in the relationships that we haven't discussed.
Yeah. So we did talk about the behaviors and thoughts. They kind of spring from past trauma. So the big picture here is take care of past trauma. Make sure that your nervous system is settled and that you can trust men. You could feel good around men and that you're not, you don't get small. There's another way that women are, another way they handle trauma, which is they'll try to dominate a situation. So if you want a masculine man, so you want that polarity with a masculine man, you want to give him the space to rise into it. Because right now it's a little confusing. A man will either pull back from it or he'll lean into it. He's going to be responsive to whatever you're bringing to the table. So as a woman, if you want a masculine man, give him space to lead. Follow him, encourage him to lead, radiate when he leads well, and just, invite the leadership that he has. And probably the first step is to back off of control some. Say that I'd like you to handle it. Invite his contribution in problem solving. Invite his contribution in making plans. And then just watch how that dynamic plays out and to continue, if you like it, to continue to nurture it and nourish that behavior.
What do you think is the difference between serving your husband and your family and your kids versus a boss? And why is serving a boss freedom and serving your family, what is it called? The patriarchy or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you just have it's one of those beautiful talking points where we didn't really get it, did we? like in the 70s and 80s. We thought, oh, you're your own woman now. In reality, okay, your boss texts you at 8:30 p.m. and needs something done by 8 a.m. tomorrow, and you say yes, sir, or whatever you say, and you submit to his leadership. And the thing is, he's not devoted to you. He doesn't love you, or he shouldn't. He should. That's not the context of loving devotion. And we're in this place where we have to dance with the incongruity of the modern world with how things have worked so far. And so, man, it's a hell of a trade-off, but a lot of people can't afford to give up their jobs either. So we're fucked.
Yes.
Sorry. You wanted to end it on a good note, but I made it worse.
Okay, so all right. Yeah. I can see that. So we are fucked, but that's okay. It's nice to at least we'll have internet and fun shows to watch as the ship burns.
That's right. Just give up your opinions, open your eyes, put on Netflix, eat some sugar, go to sleep. That's not what I think people should do. Jordan Peterson somebody asked him, why are you doing this? Just kind of speaking to his general, like, why are you going on tour? Why are you saying this stuff? And he's like, I want to see what happens. And that to me hit me in a way where it's like, what are you going to do with this life except tell your truth and see what happens? What is this life for if it's not for speaking your truth and watching what unfolds, whether that be that you get hung on a cross or you get your CBDCs taken away and you can only have 5 eggs this month. Whatever happens, you have to honor your truth. It's the only thing that you have. Whether it's your emotional truth or your intellectual truth, we have to see how this thing plays out. And if I'm going to get strung up for it, I'm going to get strung up for it. And I do sometimes in TikTok comments.
Yes, same. Well, all right. So I do like how Jordan Peterson is trying to make an alternative, the World Economic Forum. That's hopefully promising. Something will happen there.
Yeah, I'm going to be on the first wave of that for sure. I don't know what he's asking people to participate in, but my interest is piqued, and I might as well throw my hat into that ring so long as it makes sense when it comes out.
Yes. So there was a quote, maybe you know this, that all we need for like tyranny or whatever to win is when strong men don't speak or something like that.
Yeah, when good men do nothing.
Yes.
Yeah. So this guy, I mean, who I don't know, he started doing that Daily Wire gig and he turned a little more crotchety. It's been funny to watch. He was a little softer and a little more gentle 5 years ago. But the stuff that it seems like he took on the mantle of being responsible for the world. He's like, all right, I mean, I have the world's ear. How can I do with this life as much as I can to make sure that we don't slide into tyranny? And so I honor him for that. And there's very few things that I have ever heard him say, if anything, that I'm not like, oh, I get you. I see where this is going. Is he an alarmist? Maybe. Yeah, maybe about sliding into tyranny, about creating another hellscape. But the guy's done his research about how we get there. And so I haven't. So I respect it. I listen to him.
Sometimes I think that maybe Andrew Tate was just trying to get attention so that he could switch the conversation to something like that. Because as soon as he got the attention, that's when he's like, the government, the this, the that, the whatever, the matrix, all that garbage. He started. And the quickest way to get boys, young men to listen to you is to say, you deserve many women. That's going to perk their ears up. It's like, what? I do? Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah. What a man. I mean, men, we really rarely get over sex and money as motivation. So if I had more money, I might flaunt it to hit that same button, but I'm just living modestly over here.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience before we go?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned in my journey, over experimenting with whatever kind of lifestyle I wanted, and then coming back to find a little more fulfillment in discovering polarity as a way to do that, is that really a connection to the divine, however you conceptualize it, is should be a primary component to how you operate your day and how you create your vision and how you run your relationships. Without that, you're going to always be fundamentally oriented to what you can get, because there's no other access to resources. Like, God is the internal replenisher of resource. And you could call it self-worth. Sometimes people conceptualize God as a self-worth thing, but unless you have some kind of connection to the divine, you're always going to be looking for what you could take, which just puts you at a massive disadvantage to somebody who is able to replenish their own life and then shows up to the world in contribution. It's just a world of difference.
So, where can everybody learn more about you? How can everybody work with you? What kind of people do you work with? Couples, single, men, women?
Yeah, it's funny. Women tend to respond to this message a lot more than men, I think, because they are burnt out and they are more sensitive to the system being a little out of whack. So, but I do work with men and women in a coach capacity, and you can just go to speakwithdaniel.com. And so that's where I can be found. I've got a whole TikTok that people can find with over 500 videos at this point, talking about just various things, how to live a better life and have better relationships.
Well, thank you. Sorry. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for your time, and this has been fun. And I will put all the links in the show notes.
Wonderful. Thank you.